I sighed deeply as I tossed my laptop onto the couch, frustrated by yet another argument with Derek and Casey. It was like a broken record, playing the same tune of disrespect and dismissal over and over again. "Is it really too much to ask for a little help around here?" I said, glaring at Derek lounging in his recliner, engrossed in some mindless TV show. "I work just as many hours as you do, but somehow all the household responsibilities fall on me." Derek barely looked up from the screen. "If you have a problem with how things are, then maybe you should quit your little hobby and focus on being a better housewife." My blood boiled at his condescending remark. "My little hobby is a successful freelance design business that brings in half our income, you ungrateful ass." Casey snickered from the couch, his eyes glued to his phone. "Yeah, but let's be real. Dad's the one with the real job carrying this family." I whirled to face him, my frustration reaching a boiling point. "You've got a lot of nerve, mooching off us while contributing nothing but snarky comments." Derek finally looked up. "Don't talk to my son that way. If you did your job right, he wouldn't have to lift a finger." That was it, the final straw. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, emotions raging inside me. You know what? I'm done. I'm so damn tired of being disrespected and taken for granted in my own home. "Where are you going?" Derek called out, a hint of surprise in his voice. I paused at the door, turning to face them both with a defiant glare. "Somewhere I'm appreciated. Don't bother calling until you've learned to value everything I do for this family." With that, I stormed out, slamming the door behind me. No more being a doormat. From now on, they were going to realize exactly how much I contributed, and just how invaluable I truly was. I pulled into the parking lot of the Bluebird Motel, a small establishment on the edge of town. It wasn't the Ritz, but it would serve its purpose, providing me a quiet refuge to work and gather my thoughts after that disastrous argument. As I entered the modest room, I tossed my bag on the bed and opened my laptop, desperate to meet the looming deadline for my latest design project. With a deep breath, I tried to push aside the swirl of emotions and focus on the task at hand. But my mind kept drifting back to the years of being dismissed and disrespected by Derek and Casey. All the nights I stayed up late, burning the midnight oil to meet client demands while still handling all the household responsibilities. The endless loads of laundry, grocery shopping, meal prepping, tasks that went completely unappreciated by my so-called family. Tears of anger and hurt stung my eyes as I recalled Derek's callous words, reducing my thriving design career to a mere hobby. As if the income I brought in wasn't just as vital as his paycheck in keeping our household afloat. And Casey was no better, content to leech off our hard-earned money while mocking my contributions. The smug entitlement radiating from that spoiled brat made my blood boil. No more. I was done being the unsung hero, the unappreciated workhorse of the family. If they couldn't see my value, I'd make them feel the impact of my absence, and they'd be damn sorry they took me for granted. With renewed determination, I attacked the design project, pouring all my frustration and pent-up resentment into creating something truly exceptional for my client. I'd show them all what a little hobby could achieve when passion and talent joined forces. By the time the first rays of dawn peeked through the curtains, I had put the finishing touches on what might be my best work yet. A small, satisfied smile crossed my lips as I hit send on the file. "That's just a taste of what you've been overlooking, fellas," I muttered under my breath. "Get ready, because you haven't seen anything yet." After basking in the satisfaction of delivering a stellar project, I turned my attention to the next phase of my plan. It was time for Derek and Casey to truly feel the impact of my absence. With a few taps on my laptop, I remotely canceled the utility payments and halted the automated grocery and household supply orders. A twisted smile crossed my lips as I pictured the chaos that would soon unfold back at the house. Sure enough, within a couple of days, my phone started blowing up with angry texts and calls from Derek. "Reagan, what the hell? The power and water just got shut off." I let the call go to voicemail, ignoring his demands for an explanation. Then came a barrage of texts from Casey. "Yo, did you forget to pay the bills again? Real nice, we have no Wi-Fi now." As the days passed, the messages grew increasingly desperate. "Seriously, babe, let's talk this out. The house is a mess and we're out of food. Mom, I can't even do my laundry. This is getting ridiculous. Part of me relished in their rising panic and dependence on the order I used to maintain so effortlessly, but I remained stoic, unmoved by their pleas. Finally, after nearly a week of radio silence from me, Derek showed up at the motel room, his face flushed with anger. "Open up, Reagan. I know you're in there." I cracked the door open, eyeing him coolly. "What do you want, Derek? Cut the crap and come home. This little tantrum of yours has gone far enough." I laughed derisively. "Tantrum? I'm simply giving you both a glimpse of what life is like without me handling everything." Derek's eyes narrowed. "So what, you're holding the household hostage? Real mature, Reagan." "Don't act so shocked," I shot back. "You'd think after all these years of me running the show you'd have a little more appreciation for everything I do." To my satisfaction, Derek's bravado faltered, seemingly at a loss for words. "Don't worry," I continued. "I'm happy to restore order and make your life comfortable again. But first, you're going to start showing me the respect I deserve around here." With that, I shut the door in his stunned face, leaving him to stew in the disarray he once took for granted. A couple days after my confrontation with Derek at the motel, I decided to pay my mother, Vivian, a visit. I needed a break from the escalating tensions with my husband and stepson, and her place had always been a peaceful refuge. "Honey, it's so good to see you," she said as she ushered me inside, "though I wish it were under better circumstances." She gave me a concerned look. "Derek called, ranting about you refusing to come home. What's going on?" I sighed, plopping down on her well-worn couch. "The usual, Mom, me doing everything while he and Casey treat me like a glorified maid." I shook my head. I finally put my foot down, and now they're feeling the consequences. Vivian pursed her lips but didn't argue. She knew better than anyone the disrespect I'd endured from my family over the years. As we chatted, my eyes drifted to a battered cardboard box tucked in the corner of her living room. "What's all that?" I asked, nodding towards it. "Oh, just some old papers and mementos," she replied with a dismissive wave. "I was going through the attic and found it mixed in with your father's things." My curiosity was piqued, and I rose to take a closer look. Vivian didn't object as I began sifting through the box's contents, a jumbled assortment of letters, receipts, and other documents. That's when I spotted it, a stack of banking statements and overdue notices from several credit card companies, all addressed to Derek. "Mom, what is all this?" I asked, a sinking feeling in my gut. Vivian peered over my shoulder at the papers. "I'm not sure, dear. Your father never mentioned anything about money troubles." As I examined the documents more closely, it became disturbingly clear that Derek had been hiding massive debt from reckless gambling by the looks of it. And based on the dates, this had been going on for years, long before we'd even met. Anger and betrayal lanced through me as I realized he must have been siphoning funds from our joint accounts to cover his losses and avoid collections. Memories flashed of all the times I'd carefully budgeted for household expenses, only to have my figures thrown off with no explanation. My hands shook as I gathered up the damning paperwork. That lying, cheating bastard! Vivian's eyes widened at the venom in my voice. "Reagan, what's going on?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself as I rose. "Just found another reason to stick it to Derek, that's all." I marched out of her house, plans for revenge taking shape in my mind. Derek wanted to see how valuable I was to our household? Well, I was about to demolish his world, starting with the crumbling financial facade he'd worked so hard to maintain. Armed with the evidence of Derek's deceit, I felt a renewed sense of determination. It was time to take my revenge to the next level and really make him squirm. I marched back to the house, the box of incriminating documents tucked under my arm. To my surprise, the front door was unlocked. Clearly, Derek had grown complacent in my absence. "You've got a lot of nerve showing your face here," Derek spat as I barged into the living room. Casey looked up from his phone, eyes widening. Hey, Reagan?" I ignored them both, dropping the box onto the coffee table with a thud. "You want to know why I've been refusing to come home? Take a look." Derek frowned as he riffled through the papers, but his expression quickly morphed into one of horror. "Where did you get these?" he hissed. "Oh, from your stash of secrets you've been hiding all these years," I countered. "Nice gambling habit, by the way. Been having fun blowing through our savings? Casey's brow furrowed in confusion. Wait, what's going on? Stay out of this. Derek snapped at his son before turning his glare back to me. You had no right going through my private affairs. I scoffed loudly. Private affairs? You mean the affairs you've been keeping from me while draining our accounts behind my back? Realization seemed to dawn on Casey's face as he looked between us uncertainly. Derek, meanwhile, had gone pale. Seizing the opportunity, I pressed on. Here's the deal. Either you shape up and agree to some serious counseling to work through this massive betrayal. I let the words hang in the air as Derek clenched his jaw. Or I take these papers and every shred of evidence about your reckless behavior public. For a moment, Derek seemed to weigh his options. His jaw twitched as his gaze flickered between me and the documents. You're bluffing, he finally said, though his tone lacked conviction. Am I? I challenged, stepping closer until I was nose to nose with him. After all these years of me covering for you, playing the dutiful wife while you ran around like a selfish child, I'm done with your crap, Derek. It's time to face the consequences. Derek opened his mouth to respond, but seemed to think better of it. A tense silence stretched between us, the air thick with unspoken anger and resentment. Finally, Casey cleared his throat. Maybe you guys should just, go to that counseling thing? His expression was almost pleading as he looked imploringly at his father. Derek's nostrils flared, and I could see the war raging behind his eyes, pride battling pragmatism. With a decisive sneer, he seemed to make his choice. Forget it, he spat, whirling on his heel and storming out of the room, leaving a stunned Casey gaping after him. A cold smile crept across my lips. If Derek thought this was the end, he was sorely mistaken. I was just getting started. Derek's obstinate refusal to face his issues and attend counseling was the final straw. If he wanted to cling to his misguided pride, so be it, but he wouldn't be dragging me down with him any longer. It was time to expose him for the deceitful, reckless man he truly was. I spent the next few days meticulously gathering evidence, documentation, and personal accounts that portrayed Derek's shameful behavior. With a little creativity and some slick graphic design work, I crafted a damning expose that left no room for doubt regarding his gambling addiction and shady financial dealings. Finally, I took to social media and various community forums, blasting out the incriminating compilation far and wide. Within hours, the reactions began pouring in. Oh my God, I had no idea the Moros were dealing with this. Derek always seemed like such a stand-up guy. This is horrible. How could he do this to his wife and family? Disgusting. I watched with grim satisfaction as Derek's meticulously crafted public image crumbled in the wake of his hidden indiscretions being aired for all to see. But I didn't stop there. No, Derek's humiliation would be complete. Leveraging my finely honed marketing skills, I launched a promotional campaign for my design business that highlighted my personal journey of perseverance and self-empowerment. Inspirational graphics, uplifting messaging, and carefully selected testimonials from clients painted a portrait of the talented, resilient woman I was, in stark contrast to the disgraced scoundrel I'd endured for far too long. Within days, my social media was ablaze with an outpouring of support and admiration. New business inquiries flooded my inbox, and my following skyrocketed as people rallied behind the heartwarming story of my professional triumph over personal adversity. Amidst the whirlwind of attention, I received a call from Derek. His voice was low, seething with impotent rage. "You're ruining me," he growled. "Is that what you want? To see your husband lose everything while you bask in the spotlight?" A cold smile crossed my lips as I reveled in his pain. "I want the world to see the truth about who you really are," I replied evenly. "As for me, I'm simply rising from the shadows you kept me trapped in and shining a light on my own worth." There was a pause, then Derek exhaled a shuddering breath. "You're going to regret this," he grated out, then abruptly hung up. But as I surveyed the overwhelming positivity surrounding my newly empowered image, I felt nothing but vindicated resolve. Derek had sown the seeds of his own demolition. I was simply the one bold enough to finally reap what he deserved. In the aftermath of my explosive revelations about Derek's misdeeds, the fallout was even more satisfying than I could have imagined. His reputation in tatters, he became a pariah, the subject of gossip, and disdainful whispers wherever he went. But the true coup de grace was his rapidly deteriorating financial situation. Once the creditors realized Derek's web of lies had been exposed, they wasted no time unleashing the force of their collections efforts. Suddenly, all those gambling debts he'd been frantically juggling came crashing down in one fell swoop. It wasn't long before Derek was knocking at my door again, this time with a very different demeanor. Gone was the arrogant bluster, replaced by the pathetic, almost groveling air of a man watching his life unravel. "Reagan," he began, his voice uncharacteristically meek. "You've made your point. You win, okay? I was wrong and I screwed up badly." I folded my arms and eyed him coolly, unmoved by his obvious attempt to play on my sympathies. "What do you want, Derek?" he sighed, rubbing a hand over his face warily. "I need you to come home. Help me straighten this nightmare out before I lose everything." A harsh laugh escaped my lips. And why exactly would I do that, after all the lies, the deceit, the blatant disrespect? I shook my head slowly. "No, you made this bed, Derek. Time to lie in it." Frustration flickered across his features. "Don't be unreasonable, Reagan. Our lives, our finances, everything is intertwined. If I go under, it'll drag you down too." "Maybe you should have thought about that before gambling away our future," I countered flatly. Derek opened his mouth, no doubt, to offer another guilt-ridden appeal, but was cut off by an unexpected voice. "She's right, you know." We both turned to see Casey emerging from the shadows. His expression hardened. "You only have yourself to blame for this whole disaster." Derek's eyes widened in surprise and hurt at his son's accusatory stance. "Casey, you're taking her side? After everything I've done for you?" But Casey remained resolute, his jaw set in grim determination. "No, Dad. I'm just seeing the truth for what it is, instead of letting you feed me more lies." He shook his head slowly. "Reagan's the one who's been holding everything together, while you jeopardized it all with your selfishness." A muscle twitched in Derek's cheek as he struggled to find a rebuttal, but nothing came. In that moment, he looked utterly defeated, just a sad, pathetic shadow of the arrogant blowhard he used to be. I couldn't help but feel a surge of vicious satisfaction at seeing him crumble, forced to confront the consequences of his ego and the crumbling facade of the life he'd built on my sacrifice. "Get out, Derek," I stated flatly, unwilling to let his self-pity sway me further. "I'm done cleaning up your messes." With one last broken glance between me and Casey, Derek seemed to shrink in on himself as he turned and trudged away in silence, leaving me to begin setting the course for my new, unencumbered life. With Derek's pathetic, tail between his legs retreat, a massive weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt truly free, liberated from the chains of his deception and toxic disrespect. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, as Derek had little ground to contest my demands after the spectacular implosion of his life. I didn't ask for much beyond my fair share, content to start over unencumbered by his mounting debts. As the final paperwork was signed and notarized, I couldn't help but steal a glance at the hollow, broken husk of a man sitting across from me. How quickly the once smug, arrogant Derek had crumbled in the wake of his own hubris. Part of me felt a twinge of pity, but it was overwhelmingly overshadowed by the immense sense of relief washing over me. "This is really what you want?" he asked, his voice barely above a mumble as he stared blankly at the divorce decree. I met his gaze levelly, my jaw set in firm resolution. "It's what I deserve, Derek, to finally be free of your lies and disrespect." He opened his mouth as if to protest further, but seemed to think better of it. With a slow, resigned nod, he scribbled his signature and pushed the papers back across the table. Just like that, it was officially over between us. I was a new woman, unshackled from the unhealthy dynamic that had stifled me for far too long. In the days that followed, I wasted no time in beginning my new chapter. The money from my divorce settlement, combined with the windfall of new business from my viral campaign, allowed me to purchase a cozy 2-bedroom house just outside the city. Simple but chic, it was the perfect fresh start, tailored to my solo needs, though I did make sure to convert the spare room into a comfortable suite where my mom could stay whenever she liked. "This place is just perfect for you, honey." Vivian gushed as I gave her the grand tour during her first visit. A warm, proud smile crinkled the corners of her eyes as she pulled me into a tight embrace. "I'm so incredibly proud of the way you stood up for yourself." I hugged her back fiercely, basking in the swell of emotion brought on by her unconditional support and my newfound independence. For the first time in ages, I felt complete, self-assured, and in control of my own destiny. Over the following weeks, I settled into my new home and routines with a vigor and optimism I hadn't experienced in years. Each morning, I'd wake up energized, ready to dive headfirst into a new slate of exciting design projects and business opportunities. And in my downtime, I'd look around my little sanctuary, the cozy living room adorned with hand-picked decor, the sunlight streaming through the windows, and smile contentedly. This was my hard-earned reward, a tangible manifestation of the strength and resilience I never knew I possessed. The old Reagan, who meekly accepted disrespect in the name of keeping the peace, was gone forever. In her place stood a self-assured woman who understood her immense value and self-worth, a woman who refused to spend another day in the shadows of an ungrateful partner. And as I reflected on the tumultuous journey that led me to this new beginning, I silently vowed to never let anyone or anything dull that inner fire again. The day started like any other, with the usual rush to get ready for work and drop my daughter off at school. But as I sat down at my desk, surrounded by fabric samples and design sketches, my phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number, which I almost ignored, thinking it might be another telemarketer. But something urged me to answer. "Is this Jenna?" a hesitant voice asked. "Yes, speaking." "I'm sorry to inform you there's been an accident. Your parents—" The voice trailed off, but I didn't need to hear the rest to know my world had just crumbled. I remember asking for details, my voice sounding so distant, as if someone else was speaking. They were on their way to a quaint little town, a monthly tradition they had. Their car had veered off the road and tumbled down a steep embankment. It was a passerby who called it in, but by then it was too late. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen, the phone slipping from my grasp. My mind was a blur, images of my parents flashing before my eyes, their laughter, their love for each other, and their unwavering support for me. It all seemed so distant now. I managed to leave work early, driven by a need to share this unbearable pain with someone who would understand. Derek was the first person who came to mind. My husband, my partner, should have been my solace in such a moment. "Derek, I need you," I said, my voice breaking as I called him. His response was immediate, but not what I expected. "Jenna, what's wrong? I'm in the middle of something." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "It's my parents. They were in an accident. They're gone, Derek, both of them." There was a pause, and for a moment I hoped for words of comfort, a sliver of empathy, but what came was a cold dismissal. "Is that all? Jenna, I'm on a tight schedule here. Can't this wait?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Wait. Derek, my parents are dead. How can you be so heartless?" Another pause, then a sigh. "Look, I'm sorry about your parents, but you know how important this project is. I can't just drop everything. You'll have to handle this on your own." My hands were shaking, tears streaming down my face. "I thought you would care. I thought you would be here for me." "Jenna, we all have our crosses to bear. I'm sure you'll manage. Just don't make this harder than it has to be." The line went dead. The silence that followed was deafening. I was alone, truly alone. The realization hit me hard. The man I had married, the father of my child, was a stranger to me now. I thought back to the days when Derek would have dropped everything to be by my side. Where had that man gone? How had our love turned so cold and distant? But I had no time to dwell on these questions. I had a funeral to plan, relatives to inform, and a daughter to protect from the harsh reality that her grandparents were gone. As I set about these tasks, a resolve began to form within me. Derek's indifference, his blatant disregard for my feelings, had opened my eyes. I couldn't depend on him, not anymore. This tragedy had not only taken my parents, but had also stripped away any illusions I had about my marriage. It was a painful realization, but one that I could not ignore. The road ahead would be difficult, but I knew one thing for certain. I had to find the strength to move forward, for my sake and for my daughter's. The days leading up to the funeral were a blur. Between making arrangements and comforting my daughter, Lily, I had little time to process my own grief. Derek's absence was palpable, his indifference a constant weight on my heart. But it was during these moments of solitude that I found unexpected strength. My mother-in-law, Elaine, with whom we shared our home, was of no comfort. Her reaction to the news was as cold as Derek's. "So both gone at once? Must have been quite the shock," she remarked dryly, not even looking up from her magazine. I nodded, barely able to speak. "Yes, it's been hard." Elaine finally glanced at me, her gaze calculating. "Well, at least there's a silver lining with the insurance money, right? We could use a bit of good news around here." I stared at her, incredulous. "Elaine, my parents just died. How can you think about money at a time like this?" She shrugged, her interest already waning. "Money makes the world go round, dear. Best to look on the bright side." The lack of empathy stunned me. I had known Elaine to be difficult, but her callousness in the face of my tragedy was a new low. It was clear I was alone in my grief. The day of the funeral arrived, a somber affair attended by close family and friends. The absence of my husband was noted by many, his excuses of work commitments doing little to mask his apathy. It was a slap in the face, a public display of his disregard for our family. After the service, as I stood by the graveside, my cousin approached me, her expression a mix of concern and anger. "I can't believe Derek didn't show up. How could he be so heartless?" I shook my head, fighting back tears. "He says he's too busy with work." "Too busy for his wife's parents' funeral? That's not just busy, Jenna. That's cruel." Her words echoed my thoughts, amplifying the hurt and betrayal I felt. Derek's actions, or lack thereof, were unforgivable. It was a realization that cut deep, severing what little connection remained between us. In the following days, Derek's indifference became more apparent. Calls went unanswered, and when he did deign to speak to me, his words were empty, devoid of warmth or concern. "It's done then? The funeral and everything?" he asked during one such call, his tone casual, as if inquiring about the weather. "Yes, it's done," I replied, my voice cold. "Good, good. Let's move on then. No point dwelling on it." His words were like a knife to my heart. Move on? How could I move on when every day was a struggle, a painful reminder of the loss I had suffered? It was in that moment that I made a decision. I could no longer stay with a man who saw my parents' death as nothing more than an inconvenience, a man who lacked the basic decency to support his wife in her time of need. The thought of divorce had crossed my mind before, but I had always pushed it aside, afraid of the implications for Lily. But now, staying seemed far worse than leaving. Derek had shown his true colors, and they were darker than I could have ever imagined. As I hung up the phone, a sense of clarity settled over me. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with challenges and uncertainties, but I was determined to face them head-on. For my sake, for Lily's, and for the memory of my parents, I would start anew. Derek had made his choice, and now I was making mine. In the days that followed my declaration, the atmosphere at home became unbearable. Derek's presence, once a source of comfort, now felt like a looming storm, always on the verge of erupting. It was during one of these tense evenings that I decided to confront him about his affair, armed with undeniable proof and a resolve made of steel. "Derek, we need to talk. Now," I said, my voice steady despite the racing of my heart. He looked up from his phone, annoyance etched on his face. "What is it this time, Jenna?" "It's about us, or rather the end of us. I know about the affair, Derek." For a moment there was silence, the kind that suffocates. Then Derek laughed, a sound so devoid of humor it sent chills down my spine. "Affair? What are you talking about, Jenna? You're delusional." I held up the photographs, the ones that showed him with her, their intimacy undeniable. "Am I? Then explain these." His face paled as he looked at the images, the realization that his secret was out dawning on him. "Where did you get these?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you've been lying to me, to us, all those late nights, the business trips. It was all her, wasn't it?" Derek stood up, the mask of indifference slipping. "Jenna, listen to me. It's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like? How can you even say that? You've been cheating on me, Derek, on your family. How could you?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration visible in every line of his body. "It was a mistake, okay? It meant nothing. It was just, it got out of hand." "A mistake? Is that supposed to make it all okay? You've destroyed our family over a mistake?" Derek moved closer, desperation in his eyes. "Jenna, please, we can fix this." I'll end it with her. We can go to counseling. Do whatever it takes. Please, don't throw away what we have. What we have. The words echoed in my mind, a cruel reminder of the love that had turned into betrayal. Derek, there's nothing left to save. You threw it all away the moment you decided to be with her. I want a divorce, and I'm taking Lily with me. His demeanor changed then, from pleading to angry. You can't do that, Jenna. I won't let you take my daughter away from me. Your daughter? When was the last time you even spent time with her? No, Derek, I'm going to make sure she's safe and loved, something you obviously can't provide. Derek's anger flared, his voice rising. You think you can just take everything from me? You'll regret this, Jenna. I'll make sure of it. Regret? The only regret I had was not seeing Derek for who he really was sooner. As I walked away from him, from the wreckage of our marriage, I knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But for the first time, I felt truly free, ready to face whatever came next with my head held high and my daughter by my side. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight for a better future, one where betrayal and indifference had no place. The following weeks were a whirlwind of legal preparations and emotional turmoil. Despite Derek's threats and attempts to intimidate me, I pressed forward with the divorce proceedings. It was during one particularly grueling day that I received a call from my lawyer, a call that would shift the balance of power in my favor. Jenna, we've uncovered something that could significantly impact your case, my lawyer began, her voice tinged with a mix of surprise and satisfaction. What is it? I asked, bracing myself for the worst. It's about Derek's financials. It appears he's been funneling money into a separate account, one that's linked to the woman he's been seeing. We can use this to prove financial misconduct. The news hit me like a bolt of lightning. Not only had Derek betrayed our family emotionally, but he had also been draining our resources, jeopardizing our financial security for his affair. Can we take action against this? I asked, my mind racing with the implications. Absolutely. This strengthens your case for both the divorce settlement and custody of Lily. We'll make sure the court sees the full extent of his actions. Armed with this new information, I confronted Derek once again. This time, I had the upper hand, and I was determined to use it to protect myself and Lily. Derek, did you really think you could hide your financial deceit from me? From the courts? I asked, watching as he struggled to maintain his composure. What are you talking about, Jenna? He replied, attempting to feign ignorance. Don't play dumb with me, Derek. I know about the money you've been siphoning off for your affair. It's over. You've lost. The color drained from his face as the realization set in. For the first time I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes, fear of losing everything he had taken for granted. You can't prove anything, he stammered, but his voice lacked conviction. Oh, but I can, and I will. I'm going to make sure you pay for what you've done, not just to me, but to Lily. But I see you've endangered her future for your selfish desires. Derek's demeanor shifted from fear to anger, a dangerous glint appearing in his eyes. You'll regret this, Jenna. I'll make sure you get nothing. But his threats no longer held any power over me. I had the truth on my side, and I was no longer the woman he thought he could control and intimidate. No, Derek, it's you who will regret it. I'm going to expose you for the liar and cheat you are, and when this is over, Lily and I will be free of you and your deceit. As I ended the conversation, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. For too long I had lived in Derek's shadow, subjected to his lies and manipulation, but now the tables had turned. I was ready to fight back, to reclaim my life and secure a safe and happy future for Lily and myself. The battle was far from over, but for the first time I felt confident in my ability to win. The courtroom was charged with tension as Derek and I faced off, surrounded by our respective legal teams. The proceedings had been grueling, but today was different. Today, the focus was on Derek's financial deceit and his affair, the evidence laid bare for all to see. Mr. Thompson, can you explain the purpose of the separate account to which you've been funneling funds from the joint account you share with your wife? The judge asked, his tone indicating he'd heard enough excuses. Derek cleared his throat, his usual confidence nowhere to be seen. Your Honor, that account was for investment purposes. It has nothing to do with the allegations my wife has made. Investment purposes? My lawyer interjected, her voice dripping with skepticism. Is that why there are multiple transactions linking this account to a Miss Rachel Foster, the woman Mr. Thompson has been having an affair with? The courtroom fell silent, the weight of the accusation hanging in the air. Derek's lawyer attempted to intervene, but the judge waved him off, his gaze still fixed on Derek. And Mr. Thompson, how do you respond to the charge of financial misconduct, specifically the misuse of marital funds for the benefit of your affair? Derek's response was a mumbled denial, but it was clear to everyone in the room that his defenses were crumbling. The judge leaned forward, his verdict ready. Given the evidence presented, it's evident that Mr. Thompson has engaged in financial misconduct, jeopardizing not only the marital assets, but also the financial security of his daughter. This will be taken into consideration in the final settlement. As the judge announced the decision, favoring me significantly in both the financial settlement and custody of Lily, Derek's face was a mask of defeat, but it was his whispered words meant only for me that marked his true downfall. You've won, Jenna. Are you happy now? I met his gaze, my response calm and resolute. This was never about winning, Derek. It was about doing what's right for Lily. You brought this on yourself. The courtroom emptied, leaving Derek to grapple with the consequences of his actions. But the victory was bittersweet. While I had secured a future for Lily and myself, the path to get here had been fraught with pain and betrayal. In the days that followed, the fallout from the trial became apparent. Derek's professional reputation suffered greatly, his misconduct in both his personal and financial dealings a public spectacle. Rumors swirled, and soon he found himself ostracized, his career in tatters. As for me, the fight had taken its toll, but I emerged stronger, more determined. With the divorce finalized and Lily's future secured, I could finally begin to rebuild our lives. Derek's downfall was a testament to the consequences of his actions, a reminder that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds a way to the surface. The journey had been arduous, filled with challenges and heartache, but as I looked to the future, I knew that Lily and I were on the path to healing. Derek's shadow no longer loomed over us, his presence in our lives reduced to a distant memory. We were free to move forward to create a new life built on love, respect, and honesty, and that was the greatest victory of all. The dust had settled on the courtroom battles, and with Derek's defeat, a new day dawned for Lily and me. Our first morning in our new home was filled with sunlight, casting a warm glow over what was a fresh start. But it wasn't just the location that had changed. It was the air around us, now free of the tension that had once suffocated us. As I unpacked a box in the kitchen, Lily came bouncing in, her laughter a melody that had been missing for too long. "Mom, look, the backyard is huge. Can we get a dog now?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. I smiled, the idea taking root. "You know, that's a wonderful idea. We'll need a bit of company in this big place." Her hug was tight, filled with a happiness that radiated from her. "I'm going to name him Buddy." The simplicity of the moment of planning for a pet felt like a luxury after the turmoil we'd endured. It was in these small, peaceful instances that I found profound relief and hope for the future. Later that day, I sat down at my new desk, the view from the window overseeing the sprawling backyard where Lily was already imagining adventures with Buddy. It was time to refocus on my career, to rebuild not just our personal lives, but also the professional success I had put on hold. As I drafted emails and planned projects, my phone rang. It was a call from an old colleague, offering congratulations and a proposal for a new, exciting project. The tide had turned, and where there had once been uncertainty, opportunities were now opening up. "Jenna, we've all heard about your strength and determination. It's inspiring, and honestly, we need someone like you to lead this project," my colleague explained, her words sincere. Accepting the offer felt like the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. My career, which had once taken a back seat to marital strife, was now a source of strength and independence. In the evening, as Lily and I sat on our new porch, watching the sunset, I realized that this was what true freedom felt like. We had escaped the shadows and found light in a place we could call our own. "Mom, are you okay? You look a little sad," Lily observed, her young face etched with concern. I pulled her close, my heart full. "I'm more than okay, Lily. I'm happy." We've made it through the storm, and now we're here together, and that's all that matters. Our conversation drifted to plans for the house, for Buddy, and all the adventures we would have. It was a simple, beautiful future we were building, one day at a time. Derek's downfall had been a necessary end, a closure to a chapter that had brought us nothing but pain. But in its wake, we found strength and a bond that only grew stronger. As the night drew in and Lily's laughter filled our new home, I knew that we had not just survived, we had triumphed. Our fresh start was more than a new beginning. It was a testament to resilience, to the power of love over betrayal. And as I looked at Lily, her face alight with joy and excitement for the future, I was reminded of the greatest truth of all. In the end, love always wins.